Just looking through the list. And I am the founder of The Well, and one of our favorite collaborative programs is with On Being and the Civil Conversations Project for mindful poetry moments. So a little bit of introduction and a little bit about our structure today. So at the core of these gatherings is a love for poetry, a love for thoughtful, mindful spaces, as well as a way for us to really think about these beautiful poems that have been selected by Pedrego Tuma for Poetry Unbound, and then to have some writing time together. So today we're listening to the beautiful poem Transubstantiation, and we're being treated to a meditation at the top by Raina Dotson. And Raina is a wonderful human healer poet who also happens to work for the Department of Labor. And we have Troy Bronsink, who will be talking about the poem and giving us our prompt. And Troy is also a trans identity job human who currently is the founder and director of The Hive in Cincinnati, which, thanks to the pandemic, which is not necessarily a good thing, but has allowed us to be in a lot of virtual spaces. You can check out Troy's gatherings. We'll send you a link to his gatherings. So you can come from anywhere in the world. But Troy has a background that includes everything from community development to getting a master's in divinity. So I do love how this poetry content brings and helps merge together all of our collective identities. So I think that's basically it. So we're going to basically meditate a little bit, listen to Troy. He's going to give us a prompt. We'll take 10 plus minutes to do our own writing. And then if you'd like to share, you'll just raise your hand and Troy will guide us through that. So I'm sorry, I have to unmute myself. I have two dogs playing right next to me here. So with no further ado, let's meet Raina Dotson.
Thank you, Stacy. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody. It's really nice to be here. It's really lovely to see all your faces. I hope you are doing well. As we transition into this time that we have together, that we have carved out for ourselves, I'm going to invite you into a meditation that is going to be unusual. Probably something you've never experienced before. And I hope that this whole conversation we have is about experiencing everything around us in a new way as we talk about and think about transubstantiation and what that means for us. So first, I want you all to take a deep breath. Inhale in, exhale out. Take another inhale in, exhale out. One more time. Inhale in, this time deep. And exhale slowly. And I'm breathing and I'm continuing to take nice deep breaths as we become aware of the ordinary all around us. And I invite you to either open your eyes or stay with your eyes closed, seated wherever you are seated. If your body wants to stand up, feel free to stand on your 2 feet on the ground. Just move in whatever position feels the most inviting and comfortable for you right now. And as we begin to think about the meaning of the poem we are going to talk about today, transubstantiation, and how the ordinary can transition into the most holy and amazing things around us, I invite you to listen and become aware of the sounds around you. And just notice if you hear the sound of raindrops hitting the window, or maybe it's the sound of your own breath. Could be the distant sound of another person in the next room. And then just begin to notice the way that your skin feels as it touches the surface around you, either underneath you, the bottom of your feet, or underneath you where you are seated. And just notice whether you feel warm or cool. And as you begin to notice all of these things, if your eyes are open, just notice one area of the room where you are seated. And let your eyes rest on an object in your room. Maybe something that you walk past every single day and don't really pay attention to. And I just invite you to notice that thing. And as we sit and notice both our bodies, the sensations, the sounds, the ordinary objects around us, so often we experience resistance in ourselves because things may not be the way we want them. We have an urge to say no. But today I invite you to say yes. Say yes to exactly where you are in this moment, what you are experiencing in your body, what you are seeing around you. I just want you to say yes to the things that may not be what you expected them to be. Say yes to seeing things and experiencing them in a new way. And as you feel yourself begin to yield to this moment, as you continue the process of exiting the noise or the distraction of your day and become fully present in this moment, I'm going to sing a song to you, which is just yes. And you can hum along with it, or you can just experience the yes. 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 Take one more deep inhale. Exhale, yes. And open your eyes. I welcome you back into the space. And let's create some poetry with Troy.
Thanks, Raina. What Raina didn't tell you was this was a song she grew up in her congregation, a gathering song. So many times the places that we regard as otherworldly and spiritual, and the places like, for me, it's a jacket that should be orange, but I've taken it to the campfire so many times, parts of it are kind of brown, and to put both of those in that space of yes. So Ro, if you'd be willing to put the poem up here so that folks could read along with me. This poem by poet Molly McCulley Brown. As I read it, just notice first, you know what, I might just read it through twice. It's not that long. And so this first time, just kind of hear the sound of it and notice how you feel it in your body. Transubstantiation. It's the middle of the night. I'm just a little loose on beer and blues and battered air, and all the ways this nowhere looks like home. The fields and boarded houses dead with summer, the filling station rowdy with the rumor of another place. Cattle pace the distance between road and gloaming, inexplicably awake. And then the bathtubs littered in the pasture, for sale or salvage or some secret labor stranger than I know. How does it work? Again, the alchemy that shapes them briefly into boats and then bones of great felled beasts, and once more into keening copper bells. Before I even blink, half a mile out, the city builds back up along the margin. Country songs cut in and out of static on the radio. Lord, most of what I love mistakes itself for nothing. All right, let's read it one more time here. What words or phrases capture your attention? And I suppose we can use chat, right, Stacy? Can we use chat? Okay. So words or phrases that capture your attention as we're reading it through. Transubstantiation by Molly McCulley Brown. It's the middle of the night. I'm just a little loose on beer and blues and battered air, and all the ways this nowhere looks like home. The fields and boarded houses dead with summer, the filling station rowdy with the rumor of another place. Cattle pace the distance between the road and the gloaming, inexplicably awake. And then the bathtubs littered in the pasture, for sale or salvage or some secret labor stranger than I know. How does it work? Again, the alchemy that shapes them briefly into boats, and then bones of great felled beasts, and once more into keening copper bells, before I even blink. Half a mile out, the city builds back up along the margin. Country songs cut in and out of the static on the radio. Lord, most of what I love mistakes itself for nothing. Just looking at the words that capture your attention here. the for me, a lot of where this poem has been taking me is to this question of yielding. And so when Raina and I were talking about this today, and the ways that was pulling on her too, I'm reminded of a poem by the civil rights mentor Howard Thurman, and he has a phrase where he says, "In every human there is an ocean, and on that ocean is an island, and on that island is an altar. But standing in front of that altar is an angel with a flaming sword." On every human, in every human, there's an ocean, and on that ocean, there's an island, and on that island, there's an altar, and standing in front of that altar is an angel with a flaming sword. And the only way past that angel with the flaming sword, and he'd say a couple different ways, the way past this, he would say, is the fluid area of my consent, or the nerve center of my consent, he would say. There's something about getting to yes. So that's what I think would be some interesting work for us today, is this question of getting to yes. If you look at the poem, you can see the way that Brown, opening up my notes here, it's taking a second, there we go. You can see the way that Brown first is meeting things in the chaos and blurry. You know, this is everything from Jung, who talks about kind of the dreamy, watery state. There's something about allowing whatever it was you actually just set your eyes on or your ears on based on Raina's prompt, allowing yourself to get a little blurry. Too often we jump into this work really earnest and we want to get it really clear quick. And I'm really drawn to the way that often if you step into something in a blurry state, it can start to have a different shape. It can have ask a different question of me. And then she continues that naming these different things, the air, the sense of nowhereness. And then she asks this question about, how does this bring me towards home? Home's an interesting way of talking about where we belong. In the tradition that Stacy had mentioned, I come from, I'm ordained in the Christian tradition and the Presbyterian tradition. And the long story around transubstantiation is an interesting one. One of the best ways to describe it is the word we know as hocus pocus is a take, kind of a slur on the take of the Latin phrase that is said by a Roman Catholic priest, recognizing that the bread has become something holy, has actually become the presence of the living presence of God. And ages of debate has gone on, theological debate has taken place to go, what does that mean to become that? And some traditions in the Christian lineage would fight, believe it or not, probably believe it at this point, over which version of how real that presence became. How many things in my life am I allowing to be that real? How many things that I felt like were and are real presence do I guard with all my life in such a way that I put fences around it and make it exclusionary, that you can have access to this because it is what I think of as holy? How many things do I partition and leave to the experts? This is what Brown is pushing and pulling on. And where the poem continues then is into this place of the overlooked. How many times are there overlooked parts of my life that I think of as really nothing? Or even by the end of the poem, she would write that they mistake themselves as nothing. Thomas Merton has this famous line in one of his books where he talks about walking into the main streets of Louisville, Walnut Street, and the intersection there, and he sees all these people, and he says, "How do they not all realize they're shimmering with light?" So sometimes the things I'm disregarding, sometimes they disregard themselves. John O'Donohue has this phrase where he talks about blessing, and I think that's some of what's happening in this, and it's what we think of with transubstantiation, is that there's something out there and some authority out there that I'm looking to bless this. And for many of us, it doesn't matter anymore if the CEO of your company blesses this. It doesn't matter anymore if a dean of a university blesses you with that certificate. It doesn't matter anymore if a priest blesses or a rabbi blesses the marriage. There is something about I guess, the postmodern situation where we aren't looking for someone else out there to bless. And what O'Donohue gets after in a really beautiful way is that we've lost then the ability to bless it ourselves. And so he talks about blessings as a variation on foreshadowing. Usually when we write and we read books that have foreshadowing or movies that have foreshadowing in them, they're anticipating the shoe's about to drop. But he says, talks about the virtue of forebrightening. How might I forebrighten what's ahead of me, what's right in front of me? How often can I look at someone when they walk in my door and do the vulnerable thing of saying, I see you, do the vulnerable thing of saying yes, the vulnerable thing of saying, frankly, I love this. I love this. What's the I love you too of my life, the yielding of my life. So what Molly McCauley Brown does here is move from that blurriness to recognizing the nothingness. She introduces these curiosities. I heard recently that the neurotransmitter for curiosity is dopamine. So a lot of times we can be kind of numbed out, and if we can move to a place of curiosity, it actually introduces dopamine to our system. It brings us to an aliveness, a type of static presentness. And so this is what the poet's doing here, and then moves into curiosity about the process. Listen to this, where she says, how does it work? How does it work again? The alchemy that shapes, she's talking about these big tubs, right? The tubs that are along Appalachia, just kind of left out into the woods. How is it that the alchemy, losing my place here, that shapes them briefly into boats, and then the bones of great felled beasts, and once more into keening copper bells, before I even blink? The things that we see as the everyday, but not the things we always are saying no to, and the things we're not saying yes to, these things in the middle. Can I open up kind of a fuzziness and a curiosity about the process? And then she moves into this place where she goes half a mile out, like there's a journey, right? And you can see things build back up along the margin, and the country songs begin to cut in now. And then I recognize most of what I love mistakes itself for nothing. Most of what I love mistakes itself for nothing. So here's what I'd like us to do first using the chat. Is a little variation on what Raina set us up for. And it's these two questions. And then I'll give another prompt for us to do kind of the writing work as a group or as individuals. But just in the chat here, scanning your room or even scanning your week, just thinking through the week that you've had. There are certainly things you've said yes to. A reunion with a grandchild because you've gotten your shots. The chance to finally take a walk because it's getting warmer outside. These things that you're like, I've already said yes to that, absolutely. And there's things we've said no to. I'm not going there, not doing that, not today. I'm not going to read that today. The things we've said no to, those are those other categories. But there's all this ordinariness, all of this part that's giving itself away as our very life that we're postponing our yes to. So here's the question. What have you been postponing saying yes to? Or what have you not yet said yes to? Scan in your room. What have I been postponing saying yes to? Just that part of the countertop that's peeling off, or the handprints of the kids. What have I been postponing saying yes to? Or the things that are showing up in my week. And because I haven't shown up with that nerve center of my consent, I haven't quite gotten to yes. And so it just kind of stays back there. Um, and I'm not sure what my relationship with it is, or I'm looking for some authority to say it's good. What does it mean for you to say it's good? What are some of the things there? And let's just look here in the chat as folks share those. Hey, Bamaya, cleaning and organizing my bedroom, working on my memoir, a novel that wants to be read so much, reaching out to someone, living as my authentic self, the art project, wanting to create a zine, waiting to get excited about a job prospect, that stack of books. So these are tasks, meeting friends in person, drawing again. It's good. What physical things go with that? Let's keep going here. This packet of native pollinator seeds, yeah? What physical things? I'll give you a little trick here. I didn't grow up a real pet person, and we added a dog to our family about 4 years ago. And then about a year into it, I was listening to some Thomas Merton, and I had this thought of this mystic who passed away in the 60s, and thought, what would he come back as? And just the thought, like, he'd come back as a family dog, like he just would be right here. So every once in a while I just have to kind of look at Hugo, my dog, and give him a little bit of of course, Thomas Merton, there you go. Like, you went and dug that hole. Of course, like, there's a sense of allowing that ordinary to shimmer with the quality that I put on other things all the time, projecting qualities on things all the time. Self-compassion, laying in the bed with my boys in their room, reading and doing nothing. Yep. Recording my poems, seeing myself in the mirror. Oh my goodness, beautiful. No God, yes to worship in the park. Wow. Unboxing and assembling the dresser. Yep. Yeah, here we go. Is a good task. Finding childcare. Here we go. Lying on the grass. Beautiful. Crying. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Not enjoying my spouse's hobby. See, because I find it wasteful. That's so great. That's where, if you can make it a little fuzzy with that drunk mind that Molly's talking about, is like, can I just enjoy it? Beautiful painting. Here we go. So here's the prompts I invite us into. And I'll say this, like, part of the magic of poetry is the particularities. There's a coat I have laying over here, but it's the orange coat, and it's the orange coat that's been to the campfire many times and hasn't been to the washer in quite some time. There's a particularity to it. If you can follow that particularity just for the joy of it, not with a clear mind trying to make these perfect analogies, just let your curiosity run. And then here are the questions I'd like us to consider while we write here. I'm gonna just put it. Yeah, when you cut and paste, you don't always get the numbers. I'm almost there. First would be to meet this thing with its blurriness. This nowhere looks like home. How might this nowhere look like home? You know, the crazy notion of a tradition where the breaking of Passover bread means that both, obviously in the Hebrew tradition during this season, that this is a night like no other. This night is different than any other night. Tell me how. And then to borrow from that tradition, that Jesus said, and this is body. This is every day. This is sweat and everything all the way to death. This is all of it. So what is this thing that looks like nowhere suddenly become home? And then the second part then is, what is it like for you to bless what you've overlooked? How do you become the shaman or the priest or the dean and say, I see you, this shimmering holiness, this sacredness, whatever word works for you. And then the process. Can you for a second just let your mind run with what is the process? Where is the magic taking place? Where is the hocus pocus happening that makes this dirty orange jacket shimmer with life? It makes sitting on the bed with my kid and reading a story or being by my husband's hobby that has felt wasteful. How does it work? Without trying to name it, just how does it work? And then the last part here is, how do I love it vulnerably? It's a daring thing to say, well, I'll just go like Raina and I had a beautiful conversation an hour ago. And it's a little less daring to go, I loved that conversation, but to say that I love that you are in the world, Raina. I mean, to say that to another, to say that in this poetry to the things that you are greeting and being met by, what's coming ashore is your very life. So we have some time now to write. How long do we usually want to give here, Ro?
Sorry, I think 15 minutes.
Stacy's
Stacey's
using
making math, but I can't tell from far away.
But
10
it's
minutes?
not really 10 minutes. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
We'll
So
take
at
10 minutes here.
3:42. And Stacey, I'm
enjoy.
unmuting you if you want to say something.
Hi, guys. I'll chime a little bell when we're getting close. So let's take 10, 11, 12 minutes and hunker down.
So I'd love to hear what y'all have been writing. So the instructions are a little different than regularly. I think you have to use your reactions button and raise your hand, and then I'll call on you and Ro will unmute you. So Josian or Josian Smith, tell me how I can pronounce your name right here once the Ro.
It's Josiane.
Josian, okay, yeah. Please, would love to hear what you wrote.
Thank you. This is called Anger. What is missing from this picture? Tight fist boxing, panting for air, chest tightening, sleeping with the blinds open, blurry vision, skin picking, indecision, forgetting everything, dizzying, doing everything, smiling though I'm scared, saying yes though it's no, and a no although it's a God. Yes, there is something missing from this picture, my dear. It is your anger. Bless this rage. It mistakes itself as nothing.
Oh, thank you. Bless this rage. The skin picking. There is something missing. Wow. Thank you. Bamaya.
Thank you, Troy. This doesn't really have a title. Sweet smile like a spark that landed in my womb, shielded from gale force winds and gentle breezes. Around her, my cupped hands, gentle prodding with the exercise, healthy food, Let the spark leap to life as a roaring flame, burning brightly now, a swirling dance of pink and orange and red and blue, for all flames burn blue at their core. Behold herself as nothing, felt abasement, broken spirit, crushed soul. She made herself small again, barely a spark, in hopes of regaining a sacred space within me, that I'd shield her from the gentle, nearly imperceptible breeze of systemic academic racism, hoping I'd see her dimming light, notice, and return her to full flame. In my hurry, rush, 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 I nearly extinguished her with my schedule. Gift of time slowing, my girl, my child, again aflame.
Mm. Thanks, Maya. The cupping hands and the flames. Mm-mm. Mm. Thank you. I don't have a way of keeping the order here, so I'm just seeing as you pop up in my screen here. So Kara Vieder, and then Susan Knapp after that. If there's another way to catch to hands, let me know. Great, Kara.
This is called grief. Letting you in is, well, like standing on a cliff edge in the mud. To know how easily I'll slip and crash down to the rocks below, losing my ability to protect my mother, to maintain my moment, to welcome the crashing of my strength pillar is unattainable at this moment. The to-do tasks that are needed to keep you safe as your memories float into the ether on the monarch's migration to elsewhere are extensive, exponential, filled with potential loss to this disease. And so to ask me to grieve today that you don't know my face in a wedding photo, that you are angry that someone tampered with your car, which is tucked safely in your locked garage, that your friend is lying to you when he's telling the truth that you can't remember, is to ask me to leave my mother on the raft alone with no sail, with no motor, with no oar. And this I cannot do today. I choose not to do today, but I hear you, grief, your quiet whimper. I see you, grief, in the corners of my eyes. I'll meet you, I promise, but not today. Today, I need to remain the mortar holding the pieces of my family together for a few more moments. Please understand it's not about you, grief. I know you'll crack my heart open and I want to be there. I want to live with my heart cracked open, but about this today, I'm sorry, I still need an extension. I have no doubt you'll be there when I come up for air.
Oh, thank you, Kara. The speed of it, that was a gift. The way you read it, it had a speed to it, and you could feel it, like when you're winding a rope and it gets closer and closer and closer to the stick. Thank you, Susan, and then we'll go to Desiree.
Thank you. It's cluttered coffee table. It holds my creativity, the red hydrangea arrangement made by hand, 2 of my scented candles. One smells like Hong Kong, one of Grandma's house. 3 notebooks hold choreographies of meetings, masterminds, gripes, interviews, workshops, and yes, dance. Dig under last week's mail to see the most beautiful glasswork. On the left are the long completed tax returns. The stacks, the individual pieces are all complete. Nothing needs to be done. Accomplishment. Pick up the candles daily, travel far away, and to love.
Thank you. The glass underneath the tax returns, you can feel the progress of it, and then accomplishment. Felt like it was like a mic drop. Boom. Ooh, Desiree.
Being still has captured my burden. Even as screens replace windows, I no longer yearn for fresh air. while my skin aches of sunburn, trapped in a place where noise only exists in 10-year-old conversations that identify as self, and TVs are replaced by Zoom reality. Normalcy knocks at my door more than anyone would know because Amazon boxes have become my best friend. The sensation of cold grounds replaced by carpet, while grass is a foreign smell. I've dreamt of breathing in the world once, but I'm still questioning which mask.
Ooh, Desiree, thank you. The Amazon boxes and the normalcy shows up at my door. Totally great. I think Deb, I think you're next, and then Emma, and then Wendy.
This is
Oops.
standing by his hospital bed. I noticed his hand stroking his penis. That's so him, loving his dick. Now I lie in bed and rest my hand heavy on my shoulder, then on my breast. Warmth waves from my palm to my aching body. The aches, ever present and ever growing, recede for a moment.
You see for a moment. Thanks, Deb. Good. It's just like him. You said that hook was. Emma, please. Emma, please.
Good afternoon. Blurry, fuzzy-headed, the bear walks the forest. The stone steps to her cave, disappearing under the mudslide. She roars for her cubs, then lies down. In her dreams, a creek stands as tall as a waterfall. The blue-feathered salmon squawk, almost talking. When the bear wakes, she waits for nothing. Her cubs beside her.
Wow. You took us so deep into this menagerie. It took me, could we hear that again? I need to hear that again. I think I realized that I was in a play, like with the last, we've been going from poem to poem, and the last one I was still getting loose from that. So let's take a breath, and if you'd be willing to read that again, because you're moving me into a menagerie. I want to see it all.
Sure.
Thanks, Emma.
Blurry, fuzzy-headed, the bear walks the forest. The stone steps to her cave, disappearing under the mudslide. She roars for her cubs, then lies down. In her dreams, a creek stands as tall as a waterfall. The blue-feathered salmon squawk, almost talking. When the bear wakes, she waits for nothing. Her cubs beside her.
Thanks, Emma. We'll wait for nothing.
Thank you.
Do we have time for two more? Does that feel good, Stacy? I think Wendy and then Sam. All right.
Hi. Well, first, I just wanted to say to Emma, my husband would love that poem. He's worked with bears out in the outback. I don't know if you want to exchange emails. That's just an idea. We can put it in the chat if you wanted. And then my poem is Curtains. Lace guardians waiting patiently for the dream to unfold. Rose flow of knotted longing for order and peace. Borrowing a triple strand from the Benedictines, hospitality, simplicity, and peace. And yet another, work, study, and holy leisure, and weaving of rose into lace, into room that awaits. So patient you are, all this time silent, cradling this longing for the holiness of home. The word was, it says creating there, but it's cradling. Cradling this longing for the holiness of home.
The lace guardians. Yeah, it's great. Thank you, Wendy. And Sam, I think we'll end with you unless we get a reprieve on time, but I think that's right. So.
Okay, so I have one called Tiger's Eye. Standing at the mirror, my eyes meet with those of a stranger, one with dark brown pits turned into mixed amber and mahogany pools of wonder. I submerge into bronze abyss, catching the same wink of a tiger's eye that clears into golden opportunity, balance, and clarity is caught in the wink of my oblivious human gaze.
Wow.
Thank you.
That the stranger in the mirror, and then the way that unfolds. It's really good.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I'm gonna hand it back to Stacy here for the wrap up, and then to Raina for the rereading of the poem. Thank you all so much. It's a gift to hold the space for this kind of unfolding. So thank you.
Troy, it was spectacular. A really beautiful poem and a beautiful conversation with prompts. And I'm seeing a lot of love for these poems in the chat. So Ro will send us all an email, and we would love for you to share with Ro your poem, either the one you've read or the one you haven't read. And we keep all these poems in a news sort of feature in our website so that we can go back and read them and think of our time together. We're also gearing up. April is National Poetry Month, and this is our third mindful poetry go round with On Being. So starting next week, we're going to gather every week for 5 weeks and study 5 new poems. And some of the folks on this call, Desiree, Amy, and others will be back, Troy and others, Eddie, to talk about poems and or to do meditations. And we are going to produce another book this year. So we hope to see many of you come back over these next 5 weeks with us. I also want to thank the closed captioner, and thanks On Being for making that a part of our process. So if you know anyone who could use the support of this group and needs the closed captioning, we do have that now available for all of our gatherings. I think that is it. My, what a beautiful afternoon. I'm very grateful to all of you, and I'm going to turn it back over to Raina to read us out.
Thank you so much. This has been just what I needed when I didn't know I needed it. It's like that every time. Transubstantiation. It's the middle of the night. I'm just a little loose on beer and blues and battered air and all the ways this nowhere looks like home. The fields and boarded houses dead with summer. The filling station rowdy with the rumor of another place. Cattle pace the distance between road and gloaming, inexplicably awake. And then the bathtubs littered in the pasture for sale or salvage, or some secret labor stranger than I know. How does it work again? The alchemy that shapes them briefly into boats, and then the bones of great felled beasts, and once more into keening copper bells before I even blink. Half a mile out, the city builds back up along the margin. Country songs cut in and out of static on the radio. Lord, most of what I love mistakes itself for nothing.
Raina, Troy, everyone else on this call, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It is a blessing. And we will be sending out emails that'll give you information about how to connect with us, how to make sure you get your poetry resources for the next 5 weeks, and how to be a part of the next 5 weeks of gatherings. So also thanks, as always, to On Being and especially the Poetry Unbound podcast. I feel like for many of us, it's been a true lifesaver this pandemic year. So, and then even beyond that curation, there are these poets. My goodness, beautiful words from our poets and from you. So we'll say goodbye to everybody. We'll chime this out. Season 3, Eddie said season 3 is coming up. Yahoo!